Your friends, your friends. Radio friends again. Radio friends again. We've got a lot to share.
Well, good morning, everybody, to the October 17, 2025 edition of Radio Friends again. I'm Steve Parker here in Berlin, Connecticut, and we're going to go around the room kind of quickly this morning, and I'll do some introductions. I'll probably screw some of the guys up here, and I apologize for that, but there's a lot of things going on. Bill Rock is with us from Southern Connecticut. Morning, Bill. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing, Steve?
Good. You're looking good. A little sharp this morning. You feeling good?
Yeah, considering I went to bed at 4 o'clock, but that's all right. No, I just like to work late at night because there's no phone calls, no disturbance and everything, and just getting something.
Yep, I know that well. Tracy Carmen from Longmeadow. Hi, Tracy.
Good morning, Steve. Good to see you all.
Nice to see you. Chuck Kraus, Chuck Lancaster, right?
Indeed, it's a lovely sunny day, but I'm inside finishing work on this little N-scale building. It's quite a challenge for the fine motor skills.
Keeps the motor skills going. Greg Simonson, where are you from this morning, Greg?
I'm at home in Northampton, Massachusetts, just up the road from Tracy. On actually what seems like a quintessential fall morning. The leaves are actually starting to turn.
Well, yeah, it's definitely happening. Pat Sheehan, north or south today?
I'm here in beautiful Cheshire, Connecticut, and yes, indeed, I've been just thrilled to come back to be able to see the foliage.
Oh, it is something. You know, these few weeks that we get here, people come in from all over the world to see this color. Bob Craig is here from Philly. Hi, Bob.
Hi, good morning. Not to be outdone, we have probably just about peak foliage down here. Matter of fact, a lot of it is on the ground in my driveway.
Ted Daliku, you're down in FLA. Whereabouts in Florida?
On the West Coast, Venice, Florida, where the foliage is exactly the same as it was 2 months ago, and it will be exactly the same it is 3 months from now. But we're happy that it's still together and no hurricanes have blown all the leaves off the trees. And that's a good thing.
Oh, there's Joe McCoy. Hi, Joe. How are you? Where are you at? Southern
Hi,
Connecticut,
Steve.
right?
Southern Connecticut, yeah, and it's autumn in Southern Connecticut, and the trees are beautiful. And I've got some relatives coming up from Florida, but they're coming up next weekend, so I'm hoping there's something left for them to see.
And Glenn Edwards is here. A lot of people don't know that Glenn is Bill Rock's personal driver. No one deserves a ride more than Bill. So, Glenn. Now, Glenn, I understand that you are like an engineer extraordinaire. Is that right?
I guess you could put it that way. Yeah, I started off doing some phone screening, and then went into engineering, and ended up being the kind of the chief remote broadcast guy for ELI, and then when KCI and Waves and all them came on. So that's what I did in production work. So,
where are you at this morning, Glenn?
I am in beautiful West Haven, Connecticut.
This time of year,
right on the water. I only live like 2 blocks from the water, so it's nice.
Oh yeah, there's a little tiny what's the name of that little clam shack or whatever that's down along the water there too?
Yeah, Stowe's is on along the beach. Yeah, I live on the other end. I'm almost into Milford, right on the Milford West Haven line.
Yeah, a lot of people, they don't realize how beautiful West Haven is when you get down to the water down there. Actually, I was looking at a condo down there on the water, and surprisingly affordable. Down there.
I had one in West Haven about 1973, 74. It's all on the water. Well, you and I had lunch with the Jimmy's.
Oh yeah, I remember. That's where you just impressed me with getting paged every 3 minutes from NBC. I thought he was faking a lot of it. I was saying he's always gotta go. Hang on, Steve. Yeah, okay. Bob Marks, Vero Beach. Hi, Bob.
Hey, Steve. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Jesus said to the thief on the cross, "This day you will be with me in paradise." I've been living here in paradise since 1987. Beautiful Vero Beach. The rains have stopped. It's sunny and the humidity is lower, and this is where I want to be.
Boy, you can't beat that. I know.
Right, Dave?
You got it, Bob.
And Dave, where are you this morning?
I'm in Port St. Lucie, Florida. And guess what? Our sun is at its peak. And so We're doing fine. Nice cool breeze, no humidity, beautiful day, gorgeous. Sitting on my lanai, drinking
you
my
know,
coffee.
it's gorgeous here in Connecticut this morning, up in
Yep.
Berlin, towards the center of the state, and a little chilly, but the leaves are beautiful colors. And had the dog out this morning for the walk. It was terrific. And Pete Salant, Virginia this morning. Pete, like always.
Yes, Steve. I'm live and in person from my home in Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Virginia, and honored, truly honored to be included in this group of esteemed, mostly former radio people today.
Oh God. Well, you don't even have to pay your membership to come back next week, Pete. That was so nice. We really appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
So yeah, Glenn is new to the group, but he's also very close with Larry Drago. And there's been we've been trying to get Larry, and one of the trickiest things is techie wise, he's not good. And I was concerned about bringing him on via phone because there's a lot of people here that I'm sure would like to say hello to, but we wouldn't be able to pull it off from the phone. So we're going to see if we can bring him along in the future. So Glenn, tell us a little bit about your own background, and because whenever somebody's a newbie, we'd like to do that, and what it was that brought you into the business, and what you're doing now.
I was always a radio geek as a kid. I mean, I always had a radio going somewhere in the house, in the car, in my hand, underneath the mattress or the pillow at night. And I always loved it. I go back to, it's like 1972. I started at ELI in New Haven, actually answering phones for John Burchard for a telephone talk show. And it just kind of progressed from there. I ended up being a board op, and then worked part-time for quite a few years, up until I'm going to say maybe the early 70s, late 70s, early 80s. And then as Mr. Rock came along, I guess he found a little something in me and offered me a job basically, as his title was, production coordinator. Basically, I was responsible for all the recorded material that went on the air, checking slices on carts, toning carts, making sure that there was, always the best quality was there. And then just kind of worked into engineering. I used to do a lot of the broadcasts for like the old Nighthawk games. I was the engineer, and then ran programming at night, pre-recorded stuff. And then moved into more or less into engineering. I put actually a couple of the studios. They ripped them out and rebuilt them with Fred Santor. But I left there full time, I'm going to say back in the 80s, just before the sale, when Clear Channel came in. And then basically worked as a contractor, outside contractor, whatever, up until 2018, 2019. Again, did all the remote work for sports. I worked with Dick Galliette, Tiny Markle, doing old Yale Sports. Used to work with Dick when he did his radio show from his restaurant in New Haven. And then worked with George DeMeo and all that through all the high school sports, as well as all the KCI remotes. And then that pretty much was it.
So what are you doing now?
Retired.
Oh, come on. You never really get out of this, do you? Come on. If somebody called, you'd be there.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's true. But I guess, I listened to a lot of your shows in the past year, and I have kind of the same feeling as everybody. I still love it. It's still in me, but it's not what I was brought up in. It's different.
Oh.
Hey, Glenn, we now know that Bill Rock was up until 4 o'clock working last night somehow. You probably could do some production with him.
Yeah. Actually, this studio I didn't do any work in. His original studio, I myself and Fred Santor did some work in his studio installing it. So we go back a while.
You guys did the whole thing, as a matter of fact, from analog to nonlinear and everything in between.
Yeah.
Is that a screensaver behind you, or are you hanging out in an old transmitter room?
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to figure that one out. No, it's an old screen. It's actually a screensaver video. Yeah, I went last night looking for some old pictures of the stuff at ELI, and that's what I came back. It was our old transmitter. Yeah.
Did you ever work with
when you were working with Bill? Was Bill doing multitasks at that point in time, or was he still pretty well locked in with you?
No, at the point, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, Bill was obviously running WELI, but he was also the, I guess what the president there of programming for in Insilco Group there. And I know he was running all over between Florida and New Haven and all around all our stations. So he was spread out quite thin.
Is that true, Bill? Were you running all over the place even back then?
Oh yeah, in fact, we had stations in Miami, we had stations in New Orleans, and those are the favorite ones I used to go to in the wintertime, especially. I take a flight down to New Orleans and stay at the French Quarter for a couple of days, then go over to across the Gulf to Miami, and then stay at the Key Biscayne at the Sonesta Beach.
Oh,
And we had stations in Oklahoma too, as well, and Kiss in Hartford at the time, and WBLI. So we had a president of the company who was pretty much of a traveler, and so everybody flew first class, and that's the way it was. It was a great job. I think it was the first group of stations that Laurie May bought for a Clear Channel.
it was interesting back then because, I can remember, the guy that owned Betting Barn, and he did stuff down in West Palm then, and he insisted that, I mean, there were ways to do it, but he's old school. He insisted I fly down there to do, like, I don't know if it was a tag or a 15-second promo, just a voiceover thing. I'm like, I'm not going to argue with him, so I went down there and tracked what he wanted, and then I was out of there. But, everybody's really catching up. But it is amazing when you talk to people these days that, and you say, you can do quality work, really good quality work, at a lot less money than you had to spend for it before. And sometimes they look at me like it's a sales pitch or something, because I've been on the dark side, and they really really question it. But it's changed the whole world of production, man. I used to love the late great Paul Payton when he would hit the road. Have Voice Will Travel was his moniker, and he'd get everybody lined up for like $25 cable spots. But he'd go everywhere. He'd get on the road. He'd hit tons of them. So it was always when he had a whole bank of them ready to go. But it sure has changed a lot. Clark Smith just joined us. This is a man that is always looking for more voices. You're a little foggy this morning, Clark. You out late last night, or why are you so foggy this morning?
No, just been busy and.
No, it could be your background just looks a little hazy. I'm not.
Oh yeah, it's hazy. I'm not, but I have it on blur.
Yeah, well, I know. Clark is always looking for fresh voices. So if anybody still wants to exercise their pipes a little bit more, your station now is. Are you in Hampden? Is that where it is? I know you're up in New Hampshire, but that station in Connecticut.
Yeah, 4 years ago. We rescued the off-air 1220 that was WDEE back when I worked there in '67. And at the last minute, after arranging the thing, I ended up with the license and the equipment, but no towers. The college really didn't want the thing to go back on the air. And Vertical Bridge didn't want to cut a deal, even though $1,000 rent would have computed to a $144,000 increase in the $300,000 value in the first place, or whatever. But we got it on the air, and it's all volunteer. And if you have an MP3 of a minute and a half on anything, I believe in minute podcasts. We've had great commentary. Bob Serkin did wonderful pieces for us. We have John Harper down in Stamford calling the weather and high school football games 3 times a day. And it's just a volunteer thing, trying to demonstrate that you can run radio cheaply. And those of us seasoned broadcasters, we're not oldies, we're classics, from home can really add a lot of personality to just good familiar music.
Hey, Clark, is there a segment? Is there a good segment of the station that's talk?
No, not right. Actually, we run a half hour from Candy O'Terry, her program about her story, Women in Successful Careers.
Sure, I know her.
That on Sunday morning, but right now we don't have any other long form other than the 2.5 minute NASA space notes and any public service announcements that come up, and any commentary that folks want to do. Marcia Simon did some bits on travel a while back, so we've had.
Where do I know Marcia Simon from?
Say again.
She used to be PLR at one time.
Oh, okay.
She's a morning person at PLR.
PLR.
Plus, she also had her own production company. She did a lot of shows.
Yeah. So now, Clark, that Loveline sex talk, you really had to pass on that one too, or what?
Yeah. Well, hey, what could I do? Blue Hair Radio, Blue Hair Pickup.
We had when we went alternative at Radio 104. One of the shows they did at night. I think it was Love Lines or something, and it was with a woman that was like a therapist, and of course the DJ was great, and it was all built really for kids. And something, as much as it was, you had to really sit back and realize they were getting out the message about safe sex. They were doing everything else, and they did it like in a fun type of thing. So it was just something that kids could really learn from it, because she was really legit. I think Dr. Judy or something, but she really was, give good information. And then of course the jock would always have some sort of crude remark afterwards, but it was perfect for that 18 to 24, 18 to 34 demo. And it was a pretty good even split with alternative between men and women. But I had to laugh because one night I'm sitting at my desk. I was just working late that night. It was like 10 o'clock and it was on. And all of a sudden, in the middle of all this sex talk, I hear, "We're the Eagles from East Catholic High." And I went, "What?" Because it was one of my accounts, and I knew that, we weren't running a schedule. So I ran in there, and the board op was running the satellite show. And I said, could I see your log for a second? And I'm looking at the commercial log, and I can't find it. I said, "So tell me something. What happened? I just heard a commercial for East Catholic High." She goes, "Well, the satellite dropped out a little bit early." I said, "So you just put a commercial on?" She goes, "Yeah." And I said, "And you picked East Catholic High?" It's like, but it was amazing, what they really, what they had, and it did pull numbers, and we're just, again, it was just something that, the kids got a kick out of it. Unfortunately, my father, now Monsignor, God rest his soul, Charbonneau from East Catholic, had a great sense of humor. So we were able to pull that off. But yeah, it was really wild. We also heard, I don't know if we brought it up last week, but iHeart's been, out there with the wielding their axe again, or their sword, and they took Vicky Ward out of, who ran iHeart here in Hartford, and she had to be about 68 or so. It still looked dynamite. I went to high school with her, but boy, I tell you, it is a terrifying world right now when these big groups come in and just say, okay, because there's, obviously it's like HR. There's no emotional connection, and they look across 200, 300, 400, 500 radio stations. They go, I know these guys will only make a minimum wage, and they're just part-time board ops, but if we go like this, look how much money we can save. Yep. And you're seeing people, there's radio stations that are operating multiple groups that are running no one for 3 or 4 hours overnight, or more. That building is locked up, and they do that, but it's a very, very scary world right now, and you see that going on. But what are you going to do? At least when we do this program, we get to talk about where it was, where it is, and where it's going. And I think, of course, we heard about Stern, and the fact that, I guess they haven't renewed his contract, and the audience he has is huge. But he keeps saying, he says, Sirius or something else. I think he wants to do, like, I don't know, 2-3 days a week at 2 hours a day. But with some of the numbers we see on podcasts, he used to make fun of it, probably made fun of satellite too. But I wouldn't be surprised if he went over there. But now, Bob, you're still doing your show. Bob Craig, you're still doing your show live, right?
I do it live on Sunday morning. I record during the week for a couple of other shows that I do on Sunday. But yeah, they're Sunday morning from 9 till 1.
Yeah, and you were going around before we started recording. You were going around your home office there, and these are quite a few people, and that was brought up during the week with online a bit about some of the people that had met people. But you had a really, I mean, Tony Bennett. You say Carly Simon. Who else is on your wall of fame back there?
The Wall of Fame. Well, as I mentioned before, there's a couple of, well, some jazz people, Stan Getz, Bill Charlap is a terrific pianist. Who else would you know in there? Tony Bennett. Anybody know the name of, let's say, Steve Tyrell?
Oh, yeah.
Carly Simon, Smokey Robinson, Andre Previn.
No Cal Jader?
No Cal
Jader?
No Cal Jader.
What about Donny Osmond? You got Donny Osmond up there?
Yeah, in the basement, below the basement. And a lot of jazz people as well, and some pictures I haven't put up there. But yeah, they usually, as I'm sure a lot of you know, they would come around to the stations when they had a new recording, and they were promoting it, looking for publicity and things of that nature. So, you take advantage of it, and that's it.
Well, Joe McCoy is holding up a picture.
Yeah, here's a picture of Cal Jader and me. Back in the
Joe, excuse me, Joe, could you hold that up and tell us again? Because Dave's going to probably want to grab a shot of that.
Yeah, here we go. Cal Jader and me backstage at the Village Gate.
Oh, yeah.
In New York City. I was a big Cal Jader fan.
Me
and
too.
He signed it too. You can see the signature over there. So I got backstage, and I got my buddy Holly glasses on. And but
14 then, right?
Pardon me, 14, yeah. And I loved, I always liked jazz, and in particular, I liked Latin jazz.
Me too.
And,
Monday night at the Village Gate, right?
Yeah,
the Village Gate.
Monday night. Monday night at the Village Gate was Latin night.
I used to go there all the time. Symphony Sid would push it on his radio show at 12 something.
Yeah. It's they had some great stuff, and every time Jader came into New York, I would find out where the hell he was going to be playing. And one time, a buddy of mine, I went out to Brooklyn, and we got out there where he was having a concert, and he didn't show up because the plane was fogged in. So, but anyway, he was great. I love his music, and I still do listen to his stuff all the time.
Some of you might remember that Cal Jader actually had a big hit record.
Soul Sauce.
Right.
Yeah, with Soul Sauce.
Soul Sauce was the theme song for my first audition tape ever when I went to broadcast school in New York, the New York School of Announcing and Speech. And at the time, it was like, you have to have an opening number, you got to have a theme, blah, 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 and all this garbage. And Cal Jader's Soul Sauce was the beginning and the end of my show, my audition tape, which I still have somewhere in the garage.
Also known as Wachiwara.
Wachiwara. Was actually originally Dizzy Gillespie's song in the late 40s. Dizzy did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I saw Cal Jader with Mongo Santa Maria at Village Gate.
Yeah, and Jader was, if you go back further, Jader was a drummer for Dave Brubeck for a while before Joe Morello came in.
So Pat, I got to ask you a question. Being I know you always enjoyed music, and of course we talked about the fact that you really love Chicago. Have you ever had a chance in your career to meet any of these people, or you follow them for a long? You still follow them, right?
Well, I mean, now it's sort of a tribute band, and they've changed so much of the personnel along the way. But yeah, I mean, I've obviously we covered a lot of different things, but it's funny. Staying in radio would have been more conducive to meeting some of these folks one-on-one. A lot of the folks who I got to interview and whatnot would be just in the studio, out of the studio, fast, bang, bang. And so it's not, you don't get to really hang out with folks during that time because television was a very different animal than being in a radio station, having people coming in to sit down and visit for a while because they were selling a product. They want to sit down and talk to the music director and get their get their stuff played. So I'm fascinated listening to all of you talk about the contacts that you had over the years with the promotion people and the folks who would be, selling their music. I'm still fascinated though, Steve. You mentioned something earlier about the 18 to 34 or whatever in terms of what the target audience is. And I'm curious right now because I like to see how the business is operating. And obviously, podcasting has sort of taken over and streaming has taken over from what we all knew as traditional radio. Um, and I know that a number of folks on our friends list are working now in religious radio. I think Bob Marks, you're working for a religious radio station, I believe.
Yeah, sure.
And watching the outpouring of young people to Charlie Kirk has really it just made me wonder, where's the audience now, and what are people doing out there? We all know about the Joe Rogans of the world, but where is that younger cohort gone? And is that still the primary advertising target that's out there? Because as much as we may love a lot of the oldies and the formats that we grew up with, I'm just not sure where that audience is or if that audience exists. But I'm curious as to, Bob, maybe you could speak to it as to what impact religious radio has these days. It seems to me it's been on the increase compared to a lot of the other formats out there.
Well, it has, and I started there in 1991, and I could tell you it has only grown. I think there was a lull somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s, and stations that I've been with, Christian FM, rely basically on fundraisers, and so that's when people vote with their finances, whether or not they're listeners and just how strong a listener they are. Not just quarter-hour cumes, but they carry over all day long. Sometimes they listen all day. They don't want to turn it off. They just love what we do. But we will in a few days raise over $300,000 from our listeners. Now these aren't rich people. They're giving $100, $300, $50, $30 a month, whatever. We rely on monthly donations, but also one-time givers. But that's when they vote with their heart. And the fact is our radio station began in 1990, and here it is, 2025, and it's stronger than ever. Our demographic basically is 18 through 34, but we program our music basically for a 30 to 35-year-old female. And the reason why we do that is because they're in their childbearing years, right? And they have, children, and they're in their car driving, and they keep our radio station on because not only are the air personalities, keeping it clean, but they're interesting. They know the Bible. They don't shove it down their throats. They do it in an entertaining way, and they reach people's hearts, where they are in their lives. And everything is dedicated to that particular demographic. And if you reach the women in their childbearing years, you're going to get their husbands and you're going to get their friend groups, because one thing Christians love to do is share good news. They go to a good restaurant, they'll tell everybody about the restaurant. They watch a good movie, they tell everybody about the movie. They love their church, they say, everybody come to my church. So that's the audience that we have, and that's why we've continued to grow. And it's
I would have assumed that it would be an older audience, quite honestly. I mean, maybe that's just my perspective on who people tend to get more religious as they get older, at least.
But there's Christian rock too, right, Bob?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, our contemporary Christian format has groups that can cross over easily into the mainstream radio. And I've emceed many of those concerts, and you'd be surprised, 80%, I think, are young people. 80%. You get some older people, but basically they're the people who've been listeners since they turned the radio on in 1990. But their kids and even their grandkids now have become, steady listeners. So it's a great thing.
Yeah, it's really, and I hear a lot of good things about JMJ, here in Connecticut. Bob, how many times do you go back to the well once or twice a year as far as your fundraising? And you
Yeah,
said 300,000. That's a lot.
It's twice a year. It's twice a year, and I can recall when I was, there. I'd be on the air several hours during the day along with our crew, and we're telling people call 1-800-780-0919 and give your best support, whatever. And the phones would ring off the hook, and we'd be calling out, okay, we got $500 over here, we got $100 a month here, and all of that. It was really, really exciting. And people would call in their testimonies of what the station has meant to them. And, even to the point where people have said they've been so depressed that they were going to commit suicide. They were going to take their life. They lost all hope. And then a song came on the radio that spoke to their heart. And this is, it's an amazing, I never, when I was at DRC and I was doing the midday show, I never in a million years would have thought I'd find myself on Christian radio and loving every minute of it. It was so satisfying to me.
Hey,
Excuse me, I made an observation yesterday. This kind of indirectly goes back to what Pat had mentioned before about audience. But just for the hell of it, yesterday, I spent about 15 minutes scanning the AM dial and scanning the FM dial. And as I went up and down on the AM dial, it was just almost unrecognizable as to what you would find on there. It was a combination of, as you can well imagine, there was some language, there was some news, yada, yada. But more interestingly, on the FM band, scanning from one side to the other, going up and down, the FM band today struck me as what AM radio was back in the 70s. It was a combination of things that you would find on AM radio, not on FM radio. FM has almost become like AM was 50 years ago. And as far as the younger audience goes, yeah, Pat very, discerningly mentions about where they are going. We pretty much know where a lot of them have gone. And as Bob just mentioned, a lot of them have gone to Christian radio. Christian radio in Philly, as a matter of fact, I think it was in the recent monthly that just came out, Christian radio station made it into the top 10 for the first time. So there seems to be a great audience for that right now. And markets of all different sizes have one, possibly two Christian radio stations. Bob, you could probably back me up on this, but one of them must be a younger demo and the other one must be more traditional. This I don't know because I don't really listen to it, but it's kind of interesting to see maybe slowly what's evolving with ratings on FM radio and thinking back about 50 years ago, the difference between AM and FM radio. So that was just a quick 15-minute observation.
Yeah, and the all news radio, like in Washington, it went from AM over from AM to FM.
Yeah,
and it's done in a number of markets where that has happened. Yeah,
in Philly, it's the same way. The KYW news radio is both AM and FM, and I think they're holding on to the AM for signal purposes, because I know where I live, the FM doesn't penetrate as much as the AM does, but the AM is weaker in some places where the FM is stronger. And I'm sure all of you know, the demise of WCBS has left only WINS in New York, which still bills itself as News Radio 1010, is it?
1010.
No. 1010.
News Radio 1010 WINS, and then they give the FM position. So it's still known to many people as 1010 WINS, but they include that in their ID.
Yeah, I think when we saw that at POP, never having big numbers on the AM, but the qualitative was so powerful that we had between the CEOs and the owners of companies, presidents of companies. From a sales standpoint, it was simple. I mean, it was really like they either wanted news format, they wanted something that added subliminal, legitimate feeling to their businesses. because of that. But honestly, right now, I think a lot of it happened to DRC when they were skewing a little bit younger. They actually they changed the whole format because of the fact that the sales department, I don't think they knew, because of the younger sales department, they didn't know how to sell to the older demographic anymore. You got to look at who your audience is and go after people that, businesses that would be interested in that. But even when I ended up with Dave and I ended up doing a radio show at POP, that was because of the fact that they were abandoning the talk format, the news format, at 9 o'clock in the morning. And they were, G. Gordon Liddy was on and asking women to send in pictures of themselves in their lingerie holding guns for his calendar that he was doing. And when I went into the general manager after I quit, and he asked, we want you to stay, because I was the only one left that knew the format. And I said, yeah, but I said, never mind the fact that, you have G. Gordon Liddy, doing this in the morning with, the women in their underwear and holding guns and for his calendar. I said, it's just that you give up on Hartford. You give up 9 o'clock in the morning. So never mind what it is. And that's what he said. So you do a show. Da-da, da-da, da-da. So there's a microphone. I'm going for it. Greg Gilmartin just joined us. Good morning, Greg. What do you have to say about all these things we're talking about this morning?
Well, I remember working at WNUS in Worcester, where at 9 o'clock it went from all news 6 to 9, and then 9 to 12 was beautiful music, all recorded on cart. It was like one of the first automated setups. Bill, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. It's Ferguson.
Dick Ferguson.
Yeah, Dick Ferguson and Barry were involved in that. Barry Berman at that, and up in Worcester, and of course they had the powerhouse WAAF at the same time. I think the whole deal obviously is access. When I was at TIC, 50,000 watts, you could hear us anywhere you were before the antenna switch.
Yeah,
but it was all good. But now you can get whatever you feel like at this moment by picking up your phone, and off you go. So
yeah, it's really.
Hey, I'm sitting here in Waterford on the Niantic River, and it's a beautiful morning for the first. It's been pretty miserable the last week or so, cold, and today looks like a fall day, and I'm celebrating. I'm excited because we just sent off the final version of my 5th novel to our graphic artist, and it's going to be formatted this week, and we hope to see something in our hands in a couple of weeks.
So let's go with the obvious question with that, because where we're at, are you recording any of your books to tape or to whatever they record them to these days?
One of them here, actually, Bob Dio, you might remember that name.
Oh, yeah, Bob. Yep.
Bob did the narration for Spy Island, which was my 3rd book, and that's out there right now on Audible. But
Yeah,
you can find them on my website.
I never read, the all the stuff now when you think about it. When I read it, a book could take me 3 months. I do a few pages here and there, but it was now with Audible. Oh my God, I just, my library has it's called Hoopla, and it's a app I have on there. And there's a lot of great books. I go walking the dog, working around the house. Well, very little work. Angela does most of the work. I just kind of, follow her around and move things out of the way.
You supervise.
Yes, that's what I do. I supervise, and she's going to be coming home soon. And now we have somebody coming to the house, so we're going to be straightening things up. Dick called, jumped on, and as long as I've got Glenn Edwards here this morning, Dick, we were trying to, we're having a tough time getting Larry Drago on, because of the fact that he's not really that computer savvy, and actually Larry, and maybe you could straighten him out or help him out a little bit. So so Larry fairly well, right?
Well, I don't talk to Larry that often. He was literally the very first person I met in New Haven when I moved here in 1970. And I was just talking with Dick Ferguson yesterday. Dick is still one of my closest. He's probably the 2nd person I met back in 1970, because he was at WNHC at the time. And Bob Herpy was trying to buy WNHC FM to turn into that progressive rock thing. as you talk about the division or the that's not the word I really want to use, of audience, don't rule out satellite, even though satellite is not a super major player. Every option eats a little bit more of the audience, and when you consider all of the options that you get on satellite and the fact that virtually every car that has been put on the market for the last 7 or 8 years has had satellite in there, and that it's commercial free on a lot of the channels, it still pulls a lot of, particularly, I think, 25 to 54 more so. But I just think, again, and I've said this, I don't know how many times here, that you got to go where they are. And the problem, and it's not a problem. It is a new generational definition. They have absolute control of so much in terms of what the input is that they have. Whether it's, there's a term out there called CTV, which is controlled television. And that has nothing to do with the networks. But look at what's happened to the network audiences. It's because you just have so many more options. It's just not an easy thing to pin down all the way across the board. And then when you throw in social media, I mean, I can't tell you, when I look at people walking down the street, staring at their phone and talking to people all the time, forget the ones I see in the car. I just don't know. And by the way, Pat, I haven't seen you in a long time. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm back and forth between Texas and Connecticut, and it's just it's basically been catch up and cleanup time in our life. So we're staying active, and I got elected to the town council down in Texas. So I decided to get back active in terms of community things going on. So it's keeping me busy.
Well, congratulations. By a long time I was being a little facetious since I saw you recently, but Texas is that's a long commute.
We come back to Connecticut to make sure that we're still cleaning out the house. That's all.
Yeah. But the demise of WCBS was, in my mind, sent such a message. It's just a different world, and broadcasters have to look at what their segment of the world is going to be, if that's the way they have to operate, and do the very best they possibly can to bring a product that people will listen to and say, you know what, I'd rather stay here than go to other places. And that's why getting more deeply involved in positive social media with their personalities, I think, is very important, because it's the personality connection that's always made radio so key to people.
Yeah, I think the crossover is important, and nobody's really doing it yet, because DJs and used to be your influencers on the radio. When a DJ would tell you where they went or what they did, or a business that whatever, they were the influencers. Now we see influencers on social that I mean, yeah, you never heard of them, but when they got hundreds of thousands of followers, you need to get your influencers and go, can you cross promote the fact that you're going to be on our radio station tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, and let them follow the influencer on there. I don't see why there'd be anything wrong with that, but nobody sees to do that. We gotta be able to combine them all. The sad part is they say over and over again, if you're going to hold on to an audience at all, it's going to be personality, and they just keep wiping them all out. Corporate radio goes, we don't need personalities. We could just play music, and it's never been about just music.
But it's not just that when you use the phrase influencers, I keep coming back to, where's the money coming from? How all these people, they have hundreds of thousands of people. How are they monetizing that? We don't have Jim on today, but Jim Harrington has so much a huge audience that listens to the podcast that he does. Because the dollars, I mean, let's face it, the reason the demise of radio has been we've lost that advertising market. we're not the only game in town. How do the influencers make their money?
Well, and Pat, you say this, but you can also decide now when you want to hear, see, or read your information. Right. You can also just decide which one is your favorite because it matches your political leanings or whatever. So I think that the objective of social media is to be able to pick and choose when as well as what.
Ooh, yep.
What they're saying, didn't they say that when Stephen Colbert was basically let go, or whatever you want to say, and they said that a lot of it has to do with people just aren't staying up, or they're not watching late night TV because they're going to see all the pieces of it tomorrow morning. So people don't really care about the destination TV anymore. They can catch it on YouTube, or they can catch it on Facebook. And that's what's happening. So
yeah, but the advertising dollars though came out of that. The show was running upside down for years, and again, that's the problem when you lose that's why I said, where's the money coming from? Because if we don't have the dollar input, we can't get the quality output. It comes down to that.
And regardless of quality, you can hear it or see it or read it in 30, 60, or 90-second chunks, even if you do have to deal with a 15-second ad.
It's interesting, when I was, DRC, The Whale, that's a whole, boy, my dad would be spinning his grave, The Whale. Anyways, it's doing very well in the market, and it's pulling really strong demos. It's right up on top. And when you look at it, their big thing is they were 25 to 54 adults is what they're looking for. And when you listen to, Journey and Foreigner and a lot of the stuff that was big in the 80s, that's the attraction to 25 to 54-year-olds, where a lot of us at one point said, oh my God, I can't stand to hear that again. And, Seals and Crofts, Corson couldn't stand Seals and Crofts because he didn't like the guy's hat. So don't play the music. I mean, that was, but he was a different kind of listener anyways, I think. But, that's what it is, still looking at that 25, 54. But the other thing is some of the podcasts now, I don't know if there's much religious podcast out there, but I would say that there's nothing like all these podcasts. They give famous people even an opportunity to sit with them an hour or more and get to talk about them. I mean, Stern's always done that on his show anyways for a long time. But when you can listen to somebody like an Al Pacino with a one-on-one interview for over an hour and talk about all aspects of his life, and they love it because it's always been clips when they go on to a talk show on TV, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and then, move down the couch. But there's a big, I really enjoy that aspect of it. Ted Danson's got a show out there now. Conan is doing huge. I mean, huge. And he's got 2 or 3 different shows or more that fly under his umbrella. And it's amazing. So it'd be interesting to see, I think, with all the the corporate media out there and what they're doing, I think it's a possibility that really the big guys are going to end up going into an alternative way of getting their message out, whether it's podcast or YouTube. And I don't know who controls YouTube. I don't know who that is, but I think that has a lot to do with it.
The information is so much better also because excuse me, when you were watching a TV show or a late night TV show, I thought Letterman was one of the worst interviewers I've ever seen. He seemed like he always wanted to make a joke out of anything, no matter what. And instead of asking some quality questions to people, he would ask these little stupid questions. Well, now when you get a podcast and somebody's sitting in there for, half an hour or an hour or whatever, you're getting something that you would never, ever get on television because no one would be on television that long. No one would be, as you said, they would be, if they're lucky, 7 minutes or something like that. Whereas some people get 2 minutes if they're lucky. So, I mean, there's so much more quality, if you will, with something like that. And you get to learn more about the person than you would ever, find on television.
Yeah.
And that you're right on target, Joe. That's my answer back to Steve before about, well, who you met and things like that. It's just because the time was so precious that every story we did stories that had to be a minute 20, a minute 40, and that was it. And so you were dealing with people just quickly, boom, boom, boom. It was just a product that would be coming through, and you didn't get that in-depth discussion or understanding. And again, maybe just I have a higher standard that I think people really do want to be uplifted in terms of their lives and not just made fun of. And one of the great things about the best disc jockeys out there throughout all of the time of radio has been that personal connection. Somebody mentioned it earlier. It's all about an individual contact and how people can relate. And I think in a lot of cases, for a lot of you guys I'm looking at on the screen right now, you had no idea just how, when you were doing it, just how important you were in the lives of somebody. You may have thought you were like really hot stuff, and I get that. But the point is, you really had an impact on people, and you were part of people's lives. And that's why I asked before. I mean, I really was touched by the outpouring following the assassination of the murder of Charlie Kirk, to see how many. I had no idea how large his following was, and to see the following now, and I'm seeing that represented now in media, and I find it fascinating to say, is this, Wayne Gretzky always said, you don't want to. You don't want to go where the puck used to be. You want to go where it's going to arrive. And in terms of radio audiences, just think about that. Where is that audience going to be in another 2, 3, 5, 10 years? That's the kind of programming that anybody who wants to be commercially effective is going to have to look at.
I think syndication has played a big role in moving the personal contact away from the area in which you're listening to the broadcast. So when the big companies came in and started syndicating morning shows because they wanted to pay one person a lot of money and then just rebroadcast the show in different markets, and you started giving the time only based on not the actually hour of the day, but the minutes before the hour, quote unquote. And the temperature was, it's going to be, we'll check with our local guy, and then you get a bleep temperature thing for your local reading, and then everything goes away. It's hard for an audience to make contact with or feel that they have a personal contact with the person who's on the air. So that person is only doing, surface jokes or something that's universal anywhere across the country, and not anything that's relevant specifically to that area. And we have to face the idea that when people used to listen to us broadcasters on radio back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, they were listening for the music they wanted to hear, so they listened to a particular station. Well, you can get your music anywhere. Nobody listens to radio, I don't think, for music anymore. They listen to Spotify, they listen to whatever streaming service, they listen to Pandora, they listen to anybody other than the radio for music. So that's why you have so much more talk being broadcast, and podcasts take the place of anything where people want to hear something about that may be more interesting than what a typical morning syndicated jock will spew in the radio show. So radio, I think, is just burying itself, and the bigger the company is, the faster they dig the hole.
Yeah, you mentioned the syndication. Years and years and years ago, Imus said the reason he was so popular in syndication is program directors aren't doing their job.
Yeah.
They're not out looking for the next talent. I mean, my dad loved to look for next talent, and it was great when they moved on to another market. He was happy for him. But it's finding that new talent that's out there. But there's not that many people that have that opportunity. Ted, I just one quick thing. You held up a lot of stuff when we mentioned the audio books. So you look like you're a real fan of that stuff. So I just wanted to drop that in.
Greg Gilmartin's book, The Crew.
Look at that, Greg.
Greg Gilmartin's book, Spy Island. Greg Gilmartin's book. What's this? Oh yeah, Can't Sail in Jail. That's one of my favorites. And
that one's coming. I'm going to actually do that one in the next month.
Are you good? And Castle Fires. That's a hot one. That's space and all kinds of stuff. I have read every one of these more than once and give them to friends as gifts. They're great books. Get on Greg's website and buy them.
And if you
You
call
better
now,
believe that all of these things we're mentioning now that aren't radio, that they are definitely going to be going into. There's going to be commercials showing up everywhere, folks.
Oh,
One
yeah.
way or another, they're going to get them in there because that's what happened in the big beginning of cable TV. Wow, there's no commercials. And as somebody who sold commercials on cable, and Jim Harrington, who just joined us, can attest to that.
What's that?
About when you had to sell cable, and I worked for AT&T, which turned into Communist Cast, and I really we had a meeting when that transition took place, and everybody went to the Oakdale, and they filled up the Oakdale with everybody from cable. They had the guys that were putting the cables in. They had everybody that was in Comcast, every division, and you know what they said? There's so many ways that people can get through the commercials now, that they can skip the commercials now, because all they wanted to do was get the box in the house. And my concern was, excuse me, advertising over here, just a quick question.
Yeah, but that is a big issue, because if you go back to what the model is in terms of measurement, if you'll remember, people would, whether it was Pulse or Arbitron or whatever, it was based on recall in most cases, unless they were doing an actuality where not an actuality, but a measurement, a live measurement. And then you got into these areas where they would count impressions as we would, but online, but you could get out of it in 5 seconds. So really, at the end of the day, the audience reach that you would see for different media could be bullshit, because if you don't need to stay with a commercial to hear the call to action, where is the value? And generally, that doesn't happen until after they're trying to sell the product to you, which is why in a lot of cases, Barry and I, when we would put stuff together, and maybe we were ahead of the game back then, the first thing I wanted to do was give people a reason to act before I even got into anything else in the commercial, because I knew that people would say, oh, it's another commercial, let me go find something else. And that's the problem with audience measurement, because unless it moves the needle, the advertisers really don't care. And so even if your audience is huge, if they aren't responsive, you're not going to make enough money to stay in business. And I mean, that's just the way it'll always be, and it always has been, except that people don't understand that. And that's why my daughter worked for TikTok. Now she works for Google. My son-in-law works for Google. They get involved in the impression game. But when you go on the various products, you can escape it. Just think back, and I'll stop in a second. A quick story. Imus. If you think back into the 70s, his format was talk, okay, but what he did from 9:30 to 10 a.m. was what? Straight reads for an entire half hour. So if you bought a spot in Imus's show and he was running it between 9:30 and 10 a.m., I don't know. I don't care what the ratings were. I don't know whether anybody was listening, because if you were the third spot in 12 straight reads, who's going to be around? You're not listening to Imus to hear him read a commercial. And it's just a tough market.
All right, let me. Dave looks so calm, and all he's doing is threatening me. So he's so nice. I'm going to ask one quick question. First of all, don't forget, no matter what your political opinions are, it's Jim and Bill, just another day.
No, it's another day.
Oh, it's another day. Sorry about that. I'm trying to get him.
But you can call me whatever you want. I don't care.
It's really good, no matter what your political right, left, whatever. Well,
Yes.
I don't know if you're left, if you're going to really go there.
Yeah, sure. Whatever.
Thing for myself. And real quick before we go, Chuck, I wanted to ask you a question. I know I got a feeling for Pat, but very, very quick. what do you consider, and maybe Pat, just real quick, Dave, I know we're going to wrap it up real quick. How do you guys feel? Where is the legitimate news? If you guys are if you're listening, I guess, or watching, where do you, I mean, you guys are pretty good gauges as far as what's real out there. Chuck, what do you say?
I was a street reporter and anchor for WEEI for 18 years. I thought I knew what was news. Nowadays, there doesn't seem to be such a market for it, at least, coming out of the radio. I thought we had this is news. A lot of people don't see it that way anymore.
Yeah. Now, so if you want to go for news, can you say where you go if you want to hear the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say?
At my point in life, I'm not looking for a whole lot of the rest of the story. I was gobsmacked when somebody spoke of the demise of WCBS. I've got to go look up. I mean, I worked there for a while. It was the most wonderful radio station in the world.
Traffic and weather on the 8s. I mean, it was traffic and weather on the 8s was the slogan. It's like you knew where to go when you needed to find something.
I had a friend who anchored there for 20 years, Pat Farnack.
Yeah.
And she retired, and I don't think she ever dreamed that they'd be folding the tent like 3 years after she retired. I still can't. They'd even dropped the call letters.
Oh yeah.
I could. It's like
that was sacrilegious. That was
What about you? What about you, Pat? Do you find any place to go for what you're?
Yeah. Okay. I believe I'm fascinated by what's happening now. News Nation is coming along and is trying to represent both the left and the right. The other thing is what's going on at CBS with Barry Weiss coming in right now from the Free Press. And I find that there at least is, it's the first time I felt a bit hopeful about news, because there's no doubt that the networks and all the big networks, not just the cable stations, but the big networks also were finding themselves skewed left and right in terms of the way that the news was being presented. I'm with Chuck. I mean, we go back to the day where you wanted to be that straight Walter Cronkite, kind of down the middle. You just tell the news, and you always make sure you're looking for what the people on the other side are saying and have them represented as well, so that you have that balance. But I'm encouraged by the rise of News Nation, which I think is trying. And I think that it's really fascinating to me because CBS lost its way along the way, and it did become really woke. There's no doubt about it. And you have a Barry Weiss who came out of the New York Times, who then went off and started the Free Press. Look at the audience that started growing, and now here you have Ellison bringing her in to run CBS. Just let's watch this space. It'll be really interesting to see whether or not we can get back to some kind of balance in terms of the presentation and see if the audience responds to that. The problem is that the extremes are what draw the most clicks and the most eyeballs. And so we have people being pulled left and right and not trying to even come together and find the things we agree on. A good friend of mine who was a very powerful politician nationally, I won't mention the name, said to me, the most important thing in Congress when you're trying to get folks together is to put people into a room and say, not where do we disagree, but what do we agree on? When you really want to try and get something done, you have to say, what do we first agree on? Most of America is somewhere in that, not in the 10% on one side or the 10% on the other. They're in the middle. And so if you really do want to progress somewhere, you have to find out, what do we agree on? The news has not been reflecting that because of the commercial, I think the commercial impact of the shattering of the spectrum that we've seen and we've experienced. We now have people being pulled to one side or the other, and everybody has to be in their own little enclave, fighting the good fight. And yet most of America then tunes out and doesn't care. So to your question, I've been, I was disappointed. I used to think CNN was a nice, easy and balanced format. I do think that some of the folks on Fox tried, and they lost in terms of, obviously, the evening programming is ridiculous. But I still think Brett Baer does a decent job out there on the 6 o'clock news. But to your question, Steve, you want to hear the other part of the story. I drive my wife crazy because I'll watch every one of those networks because I'll hear stories on one side that I never even got mentioned on the other side. So, look where this is going to go, because I think people are sort of fed up with the anger that's out there, and we'll try and see if people can pull back into some kind of a balance out there.
What's interesting is the first move that Barry Weiss made was broadcast news standards person got relieved yesterday.
Yep.
The person in charge of what I guess they put on their news programs was relieved. I thought that was interesting.
And one of the cases that was in there, Jim, was the transgender shooter at a school. The news standards person said you can't mention that this is a transgender shooter, even though the police had identified that as being an essential part of the story.
Wow.
But the woman who was the standards objective person for CBS said that she didn't think that would be relevant. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that that's going on. So let's see how that develops. I'm not sure that that's going to be the answer to everything, but at least somebody is recognizing that there had been a pull and a skew, and they should recognize that at Fox too. They should come in and they should say, we need to get back to that point counterpoint balance that was out there. Love him or hate him, Bill O'Reilly, when he did his program, not where he is now, but when he was doing his early program, the thing that made it an attractive program is he brought on people that he totally disagreed with, and they would argue. That was attractive to me, as opposed to saying, let's bring all the people in who I agree with, and we'll all ask the question, what are those other people doing? They're all crazy.
Yeah, him and Letterman, Pat, were the best. When those two went at it together, Letterman goes, "You're such an idiot." I mean, but it was that battle, and still at the end of the day,
well, we're still going back to Jane, you ignorant slut. I mean, the idea that was okay, but it was the point counterpoint that they mocked on Saturday Night Live.
Oh yeah.
But the idea was that you had Hannity and Combs, or you had these people where you had both sides being represented. That's been lost.
Yep.
So let's see where this develops. I'm encouraged for the first time that maybe there's at least a conversation and people are paying attention to this.
Okay, and Pat, where are those networks that you spoke about? They TV, radio, or where?
I'm sorry. News Nation is a cable operation based out of Chicago, I think.
Yep.
But and that's where Chris Cuomo ended up. And whatever you think of Chris when he was on CNN, he tries in his evening program every night to say we're here to bring people from left and right on, and he's doing that. Elizabeth Vargas, who I forget, she was ABC, I believe, at some point, but she's doing. They're bringing in some decent people. Leland Vittert is there. I'm just finding that even on their evening and weekend programming, they're doing more what I would call legitimate news than the political slants that you get 24/7 out of a bunch of the more established
I believe
cable, but that's a cable operation.
You still need boots on the ground, and that requires money to pay for people who are going to show up and talk to the people who are involved in whatever the news story is, whether it's a fire or a murder or a political approach. And without those people, I know Ted Turner, that was his goal when he started CNN. He wanted to have everybody out there with cameras so they could see what was going on. Here it is, folks. This is what we are seeing because we're here. And without that, it's just yappity yap.
Well, thanks, guys. Dave, thank you for giving us a little more wiggle room there. I just wanted to include
You're
that.
welcome.
I know at my station, when I brought that up, I said, we should do point counterpoint somewhere. And my brand's manager basically said to me, no, people don't want that. And you're like,
Steve, one last thing, because I do want to mention that Free Press. the Free Press, which I guess was just an online thing. You can look that up, Google it. But the Free Press did have and does have people from all different backgrounds together, and it was the effort to say the press has lost its way. Let's see if we can get multiple viewpoints out there. That's what made her attractive to the people when they came in from Paramount, I guess, and bought out CBS.
Well, hopefully, let's remember here when we do Friday mornings, we just share the love. That's what it's all
Of
about.
course.
And we're going to try to do it again next week on the wow. I guess that's going to probably be the 24th of October already. Don't forget to enjoy your foliage, and if you get a chance, you probably don't tomorrow morning, but there will be hopefully, if everything goes right, on WTIC.com a podcast. If you go up to our podcast link, and if you look at the show that we do on Saturday morning, we are going to have Denny Tedesco there. So for you guys that are interested in the behind the scenes studio stuff, you can go find it there. Little plug for me. Okay, we're gonna get out of here. I want to thank Bill Rock, Tracy Carmen, Chuck Kraus, Greg Simonson, Pat Sheehan, Bob Craig, Ted Daliku, Greg Gilmartin, Dick Calt, Glenn Edwards. Welcome, Glenn, for your first time here. And Jim Harrington. I want to thank everybody for being on with us this morning. Hopefully I got everything covered, and we'll do it again next week. And don't forget to, whenever you can, the Broadcasters Foundation of America, because no, it's Broadcasters Association. Is that what it is? I gotta no, it's Broadcasters Foundation of America.
Foundation.
You'll find it, and they're there to support you if you need any kind of help financially or anything else, going through some lean times. We've had experiences here where some people have, and we've been able to help them out. So I want to thanks a lot for watching this edition of Radio Friends. Again, I'm Steve Parker, and we'll catch you hopefully next week. And for those of you who weren't here, feel free to shoot us comments or questions or concerns, and that's what we're here for. So, guys, I'm going to get out, but you're always welcome to stay for the good stuff. Catch you next time on Radio Friends again.
Your friends, Radio Friends again. Radio Friends again. We've got a lot to share. friends again. Radio friends again. We've got a lot to share.